In Puerto Rico in 1995, reports of dead animals did not first feel like a monster story. They felt like a frightened question about what had entered the pens before sunrise. Reports spoke of goats, puncture wounds, and missing blood, but the clue that makes the legend dangerous is stranger than the deaths. The first creature people imagined and many bodies later called Chupacabra do not look like the same thing. That is the split. In Puerto Rico, a widely repeated description pointed to a gray, upright, spined figure that felt almost alien. Years later, in Texas, New Mexico, and other ranch country, many so-called Chupacabra bodies looked like hairless dogs or coyotes. One name was now holding two bodies. If this was one animal, why did the evidence seem to change costume? Hold that question, but do not laugh at the first people who were afraid. Imagine owning the animals, opening the pen, and realizing the explanation has not arrived yet. Food, money, safety, and pride are all lying inside that moment. A monster story can begin before anyone wants a monster story, because damage asks for a culprit before evidence is ready. That reflex is not stupidity, it is old survival math. If a shadow might be a predator, the safer brain treats it as one first and apologizes later. That reflex can save a life. It can also turn darkness, puncture marks, and a radio rumor into an enemy with a name. Now shrink the legend to one kitchen table. Someone has to decide whether the pen failed, whether a predator came through, or whether the night is no longer safe. That is where the Chupacabra found oxygen. The story did not need everyone to believe at first. It only needed enough people to ask the same frightened question. Chupacabra means goat sucker, and the name is almost too perfect. It is short, visual, frightening, and impossible to forget. Once that label exists, every new carcass enters a prepared frame. Punctures become fangs. A thin body becomes a monster. A rumor becomes a map for the next rumor. The blood claim gives the legend its shock, but it is also where careful evidence matters most. A carcass can look drained even when blood has pooled internally, clotted, soaked into bedding, or been altered by scavengers before anyone records the scene. Reported blood loss is not the same as confirmed proof of an unknown blood-drinking predator. There is another problem most monster stories hide. By the time a strange animal death becomes a neighborhood event, the scene has already changed. A clean case would need quick photographs, secured remains, track casts, veterinary notes, and chain of custody timing. Instead, people walk near it, animals may scavenge it, and details get repeated before they are recorded. That does not erase the fear, but it weakens the certainty. A mystery can be emotionally real before it is scientifically clean. The early creature image matters because it arrived with force, upright posture, strange skin, spines or quills, a body that did not feel like a normal predator. A description like that does more than describe. It teaches the public what to look for next. After that, every shadow can become a test of the same image. Once enough people repeat a detail, the detail begins to feel heavier. A neighbor remembers punctures. A broadcast repeats missing blood. Another town hears the name. Puerto Rican radio, local television, and later internet clips did not create every fear, but they gave the fear a faster road. Soon the next report is not entering an empty room. It enters a room already decorated with expectations. Another uncomfortable possibility is not that witnesses lied. It is that memory borrowed. Fear, repetition, television, and vivid images can shape what a sincere person later remembers, especially after the same sketch or phrase appears again and again. That matters because protecting witness dignity and protecting evidence are not enemies. Now return to the mismatch, because this is where the case tightens. The Puerto Rico image points upward, spined, gray, nightmare-like. The later American evidence often points downward, towards sick canids in scrubland and ranch country. A stable species should not transform that much as it crosses borders. A traveling legend does. That mismatch does not automatically solve every report, but it changes the burden of proof. If the original creature and the later bodies are not the same kind of thing, then the word Chupacabra may be doing more work than the evidence. The name stitches unrelated fears together and makes them look like one creature walking across a map. Many later bodies were identified as known animals, often dogs, coyotes, hybrids, or other canids affected by disease. Sarcoptic mange can strip hair, damage skin, thicken the body outline, and make a familiar animal look wrong. That answer is less cinematic than a vampire beast, but in a strange way it is sadder. The monster may be suffering ecology in plain sight. A diseased animal can disturb people because it lives in the space between familiar and impossible. The outline is almost known, but the skin is wrong. The movement is almost ordinary, but the body seems misplaced. That is where the uncanny begins. The brain recognizes enough to feel danger, but not enough to feel safe. But notice the emotional trap. A lab can identify a coyote and still not erase the night someone found the animals. The ordinary answer arrives late. By then the fear has already touched money, family, safety, and trust. That is why a corrected case can still leave an uncorrected feeling. This pattern is older than television. Wolf scares, vampire panics, cattle mutilation scares, and predator legends often grow where death feels intimate and explanation feels weak. What changed in the 1990s was speed. A village rumor once crossed fields. The Chupacabra crossed broadcasts, borders, and screens. Media does not merely report a legend. Sometimes it gives the legend rhythm, repetition, and reach. Each retelling keeps the core fear and adjusts the body to local animals, local losses, and local distrust. That is how folklore survives travel. It changes without admitting it changed. The Chupacabra also moves through language and migration. It belongs to Puerto Rico, but it does not stay there. As the story travels, it becomes useful in new places, desert roads, ranches, local news segments, online clips, and backyard carcass photos. Each place gives the monster a local body. That is not how a species behaves. It is how a story survives. A useful monster does not only scare people, it organizes the pain. It says the dead animal, the strange marks, the neighbor's story, and the television warning are not scattered events. They are one attack. That can feel powerful even when the science underneath is weak. A real animal claim needs animal evidence, a body that does not match known species. DNA, consistent feeding marks, tracks, hair, scat, and repeatable cases examined before rumor changes the scene. A blurry clip can start curiosity, a preserved specimen. Lab notes, and testable data would have to carry the claim. Stories can begin an investigation. They cannot finish it. The strongest future case would not be another blurry clip or another frightening name. It would be a fresh carcass secured quickly, examined by qualified people, compared against known wildlife, and tested before the story can harden around it. That standard may feel strict, but it is what keeps wonder from turning into a trap. That is the line this story asks us to hold. Mocking belief makes the case smaller. Accepting every claim makes it weaker. The better path is simple and difficult. Listen to the fear, then make the evidence do its work. That is not cold. It is a way of respecting both people and truth. A frightened witness deserves dignity. A frightened claim still needs proof. That is why the Chupacabra can remain interesting even when many cases become ordinary animals. The evidence story and the folklore story are not the same, but they touch. One asks what killed the animals. The other asks why a community needed the killer to become a monster. So is the Chupacabra solved? Many bodies are, many reports are, but the original wound was larger than taxonomy. The creature claim can weaken while the human story remains sharp. People do not invent fear from nothing. They shape fear from the pieces they have. If you could test one clue first, which would you choose? The 1995 Puerto Rico deaths, the blood claim, the original creature description, or the later canned bodies? The answer reveals more than a theory. It reveals what kind of evidence your mind trusts when fear enters the story.